Hello everyone, welcome to Nobody's Tribe. As you step into this space, may you possibly give up the obsession with past and future and just simply enjoy this moment and the information I speak of. Today I'm going to talk about my dog's barking. No, I'm just kidding. Talk about the idea of understanding, which is most people think of as understanding being to comprehend. But I'm going to talk about the idea of innerstanding and overstanding. Very different ideas than understanding. When somebody is understanding of something, they are getting a grasp on the conceptual thought process, the idea of it. You are getting involved with it and you are trying to figure it out. So if somebody's trying to, and there's my daughter. Say hi, Newtson. Say hi, baby. Hi, honey. If you're trying to understand something, you're getting involved in it. You are figuring it out. You're going to past and you are projecting in future, and it becomes part of your thought processes. So you are understanding it. That is all well and good for a lot of things, but when it comes to places of deep suffering, or it comes to places of conflict and depression, drama, and daily life, understanding can, in a sense, be overwhelming. It can be dysfunctional. I would say about 80 to 90% of it is completely useless to try and understand the ins and outs of the causes of the drama and whose fault it was, and if it's your fault, and if it's your past life's fault, or whatever it is you believe is causing the issue. A lot, if not most of it, is completely irrelevant. So when you get to a place where you have emotion come up, upheaval come up, and you are in the midst of it, understanding will be useless. I'm not saying that the emotion coming up is useless, that it's bad. What I'm saying is the trying to draw a conceptual reality, which is understanding, out of it. And as I talk about in other videos, the conceptual reality is a linear story of your life situation that is tied intrinsically to your perception of yourself, the conceptual self, which is your idea of yourself, but not who you are at your core. When you go into the understanding of it, you create suffering. That they are intrinsic. To try and conceptualize the suffering, you have to have a conceptual version of yourself, a thought self, a thought-based self. Then you could go. So how do you get past that? You go to a place of innerstanding. And it's a good play on words, because if you think about innerstanding, it's as if you go inside and you are standing in the inner, and you are untouched by the outside world. But in the moment, it won't feel like you're untouched, because that's when we get to overstanding. But that's next. Innerstanding is when you're in a place that is not comfortable, you're not exactly where you want to be, but you give up resistance, you surrender. And surrender is giving up understanding and going within to innerstanding. Innerstanding, picture like a small version of yourself standing within your empty body and just standing there in peace, even though there is emotion and drama and conflict, and that innerStanding isn't trying to understand. It's not trying to draw conclusions and figure out what this means for your future, or trying to connect it to the victimization of your past or how you feel or think about yourself. The inner self is just feeling it with no conceptual makeup, no understanding. Giving up that understanding is very hard for the created persona, which wants your ego, the created persona, wants to, through force, figure out why life isn't going right. It wants to blame. And when you go to innerStanding, there is no blame. There is just presence, and there is just awareness, and you could feel uncomfortable and not turn it into suffering. When that happens, there will be an aha moment, because it's so simple and subtle that you can say that I actually do not feel great. I would prefer to be doing something else, but this is what I'm doing. Yet I'm offering no inner resistance. I innerstand the situation. And you will find a background of deep peace in a situation that would normally cause suffering and story making and self-defeating thoughts and, oh, I'm so weak because I'm uncomfortable and I'm falling apart and I should be and I don't know how, and I'm just innerStanding. Once you can start bringing in the innerStanding over and over and over, it is a daily practice. Your daily practice is more important than meditation. It's more important than energy healing. It's more important than yoga retreats. Is your daily practice of awareness and bringing more consciousness to the life that you live. And as you do that, you will get to, I'm going to talk about this in my book and probably more videos, but you have life themes. At this point in your journey, you're probably going through life themes very rapidly, which will seem as if things are falling apart, or the world is against you, or you're against yourself, and it'll happen very quickly. You'll go from places of deep healing to all of a sudden you're right back in the midst of the war, and you're just getting an onslaught of issues, an onslaught that seems as if it's destroying your identity, which is somewhat the point. But one thing after the other, somebody dies, your friend moves away, your significant other doesn't love you anymore, you start feeling like you don't love yourself anymore. All these issues that are coming up that you thought you had transcended, yet there they are again, and you're stuck right back in it. So these things are coming up to be released. And at first you have to bring innerStanding. You cannot overstand these things. You've already understood them at one point. But when you get to a place of innerStanding, you realize all understanding is relative and is not true. There is no thing that is the cause of these issues, unless you want to say that you're the cause, your created persona is the cause. But even that is overlooked when you go to a place of innerStanding. That is irrelevant. What is causing it? There doesn't need to be a figuring out of what's causing it. There is just an inner surrender and an innerStanding. And as you do the innerStanding, you'll get to these life themes that do not feel good. They're really crippling, but you can go to a place of innerStanding, which at first will just feel as if you're being quiet in yourself while things feel bad. But then as things shift and change, you'll notice certain life themes. You will be able to walk through them and have the arrows being shot at you fall at your feet. They don't stick anymore. They don't even cause the negative sensation anymore. Not to mention the psychological suffering. They don't cause the lowering of your feeling okay and good and safe. I think there was a quote from Buddha. You shoot arrows and like they turn to roses at my feet or something like that. I don't remember. Somebody might know the quote, but basically it doesn't matter what's coming at you for certain themes. I mean, you're not gonna have everything feel good all the time. I mean, maybe at some point you'll have most things feel good, but I mean, you're gonna have discomfort come. But when you get to a place, this is where you bring in overstanding. And overstanding is where you're kind of looking down, and there is no connotation to it. There is no good and bad to it. It is just a happening, and you're like, interesting. This used to bother me. This used to be very uncomfortable, and here I am, just watching. Overstanding is when you get to a place where you realize that your whole life of understanding was a self-created conceptual box that had no truth to it. It was a reality at the time because you created it. Then you had to go to the stage of innerstanding, which you had to endure it. And I say endure it because it's not comfortable. And then, as you give up the need to understand, you begin to overstand. And when you overstand, you really understand. You really overstand. Jesus is saying when he said to be in the world, but not of the world. That dimension of consciousness comes in when you start to overstand life themes. And you can overstand a life theme, a certain situation, and then immediately be brought into another situation that you do not overstand. You're not even understanding or innerstanding. You're just... So just because you have one area, mapped out, and you fail in another area, or not fail, but you give in another area, doesn't mean you need to go to a place of innerstanding in that area where you are not creating self-blame, you're not worried about your spiritual vibration, you are just innerstanding. That innerstanding is a form of forgiveness. That forgiveness energy is the highest vibration you can give in that situation, because you're not going to be in a situation of extreme discomfort and be, shooting out love and light rainbows out of your eyeballs. You have to go to a place of surrender and acceptance, and that's the highest vibration you can create in that situation. And it may not feel like it. You may feel like you're actually like going low vibration because you do not feel good, and you don't feel good. But the resistance to not feeling good is actually creating the low vibration, not the low feeling itself. I hope that elaborates a lot as you walk through your day. I hope you can analyze. Right now I'm understanding, which when you think you're understanding, you're looking for the cause of the emotion. You're searching and you're demanding answers, and you want to know whose fault it is. A lot of times you want to make sure it's not your fault, it's somebody else's fault, or the world's fault, or your work's fault, or my dog's fault. Was he making noise over there? You say, okay, I'm trying to understand. Go into a place of innerstanding. Okay, here I am. I'm innerstanding. I am not offering resistance. I am breathing. I am just aware. And then you'll notice at some point you will be overstanding, and you'll say, there's that situation, and you have no inclination to be drawn into the hook. You have no inclination to want to grab onto that. It doesn't, it doesn't have the energetic charge anymore. It doesn't pull your consciousness in. It's just, oh, I don't want to partake in that. I'm okay. I'll just be myself right here. It's very powerful, these ideas. I've learned through deep suffering and depression, which I say deep suffering, but I feel like a lot of it wasn't suffering per se, because I had to grasp on these ideas very rapidly, because I couldn't let myself suffer like that anymore. I could not partake of the suffering. So even though I was not good feeling, I had to either deeply suffer or find the inner standing. And I went to the inner standing very rapidly in a very uncomfortable situation. And so as these teachings and these ideas come to me and I speak them out, which I'm like learning this as I'm speaking it, because it's not like I wrote down this innerstanding, understanding thing. I literally sat down in front of the camera and was like, understanding, innerstanding, overstanding, and I just kind of went with it and made this all up right now. Though I have heard people use the word overstanding before, but I don't know if it was in this context. I don't believe so, but it's interesting, this whole conscious awareness thing, how malleable our lives are. And you do get to a point where you can't see that you're creating it. You're overlaying yourself on top of a reality that is unbiased, is neutral. I love you all. Like Nobody's Tribe on Facebook. Share with your friends. And subscribe to my YouTube. Nobody's Tribe. Subscribe to the tribe on YouTube. I love you all. Safe travels in the now.